Good afternoon, and thanks everybody. My name is Kothari. I'm with Cascade Partners. We're going to just talk a little bit about, you got Andy all excited, hopefully everybody all excited, ready to go get into their private equity deal or find a minority partner. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking today just about 3 or 4 aspects about, hey, what does that life really look like afterwards? Because I think what we find when we're working with, particularly with physician practices and sometimes with the private equity partners, they all have their own set of assumptions and their own world that they start from, and they get excited. They get excited about the transaction. They get excited about that check at the end, and they sometimes don't focus on all the details. So we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of detail things today. So again, just talking about life after. Everything will change. Get ready. Okay, it's not quite that bad, but it is a real fundamental change for how most physicians have seen their parents grow up in the industry, how they've grown up in the industry, and how they've operated their business. So all of a sudden, they're entering this new world where they either have a private equity partner, they've got a minority partner, they've done something fundamentally different, and they have a whole bunch of things to think about, right? So they got to think about life after closing, all of these different elements. Hold it, I have clinical governance versus how we run our practice. I'm not involved in making decisions on how we're going to operate our practice. What's an outside board member? Right? These are all things that are new to the physicians as they enter into this partnership, and sometimes they're forgetting about, well, what does it really mean? And the private equity teams have to take a minute and make sure they get what these activities really, how it really impacts the physicians, how it impacts how they're decision making. One of the things we talk about with practices all the time is when you're getting ready to look at something like this, finding a partner, kiss autonomy goodbye. Right? You're going to have clinical autonomy. They're going to let you do things clinically, but the whole purpose of having this is you got a partner. So you have to play like partners. And you have to work on, hey, how am I going to make sure I'm meeting their objectives and that they're meeting my objectives? And that is not how practices have run up until the point that you find that partner. You wanted to buy a piece of new equipment, you talked to your partners, you went out and bought a new piece of equipment. Today, you got to go budget process, it's got to get approved, it's got to run through the committee, and all of a sudden, hey, how I ran isn't the same. And so this trade-off is part of what life is like after closing. And the best time to figure it out, they talked about it earlier this morning, is you got to start socializing these and getting educated long before you start the process. Because when you hear the first time, yes, we're going to change your compensation, you're going to what? Right? It's after about the 4th time of going through, here's the economics, right? You're going to get paid as a provider and you're going to get paid as a shareholder. And your payment as a shareholder is going to go away because you're going to own some equity and you're going to get this big fat check and you're going to continue to get your payment as a provider. I cannot possibly live on $700,000 a year. Let me show you how you can live on $700,000 a year. That's the conversation, the education that you got to take providers through, because this is a very different world than they've lived in for the first part of their career. And so really the biggest thing is you're switching their thinking from cash flow to equity value. And that is a very significant shift for physicians to make as they're looking at exploring finding a private equity partner, is whether it's a majority or a minority. That's a fundamental shift that folks have to go through. Practices used to give equity away 10, 15, 20 years ago because it had no value. Most buyouts were, oh, I'm going to give you your receivables when you leave. Today, as Andy just got done showing you, that equity has tremendous value today. And as a result, you have to think about it, you have to approach it differently, because private equity is absolutely doing that. So you got all excited, you've spent time, you're figuring this out, I'm understanding how compensation works. You know, the private equity guys got to think about the inherent distrust that physicians have as they're going through this process, because all they hear about going through residency and from all the other practices they talk to is the bad experiences they had with private equity. Very few people are out talking about the great experience I had in private equity. It's like reviews. The reviews that you read on most products are the bad reviews, because that's the one where people are pissed off and they want to talk about it. And so the vibe in the physician community, without a lot of education, without breaking those things out, is this is bad. And the reality, there's some tremendous successes and fantastic returns for physicians that have enjoyed the clinical work, have enjoyed the ability to focus, and oh, by the way, they made a few dollars along the way while still delivering high quality care. All right, so you got through this, you got into this partnership, and now it's time for you to move on, right? We're talking about life after your private equity partnership. And you've said, hey, it's time for me to move on, right? So how do I want to leave my organization that I've been part of? What kind of partner do I want to be? Right? Because when I'm leaving as a physician, I've got partners that I was working with. Oh, by the way, I've got this new partner, my private equity partner. What kind of partner do I want to be when I'm leaving? And then what kind of partner have they been? Right? I think my friends in the private equity world forget, how physicians are leaving the practice and when they want to leave is a lot of part on what kind of partner the private equity partner has been. So we're going to talk about a couple of things that don't have anything to do with valuation, and things like, are you a good leaver, right? Whoops, sorry, wrong slide, but when you're moving on, you got to remember you got 3 distinct non-compete agreements if you've done a private equity transaction, right? I got a non-compete agreement related to my employment, because now while I'm a shareholder, I'm an employed physician now. I've got my non-compete associated with my, as a selling shareholder. And since I rolled equity and I own equity in the new entity, guess what? I've got a non-compete related to my ownership in the new company. So you have 3 separate non-competes. They're not the same. They have different levels of enforceability, and they usually have slightly different parameters. So all of those come into play when you say, well, what kind of person do I want to be? Do I want to be what's called a good leaver? Do I want to leave on good terms? Private equity just paid you millions or 10 millions of dollars when they partnered with you in your practice. The last thing they want is for physicians to leave because you are the revenue. Physicians are the revenue. So Annie was mentioning, hey, if you're cashing out the physicians completely, there's no skin in the game. So if they decide they want to leave, they just go. So while you put the non-competes, there's only so much impact. But if you're rolled because you really want a partner and you continue to own a piece, right, they really don't want that revenue stream to leave. So did you give them enough time to find a replacement? So it's time for me. I'm 65 years old. I've been working my tail off. It's time for me to retire. You know what? In 2 years, I'm gonna be done. Let's work on finding that replacement physician. That's being a good partner, because it gives them time to replace that revenue stream. Planned retirement. Italics, bold. If I could made it flash, I would have made it flash. Right? Planned retirement is not, I'm retiring in 3 months. You can't recruit. Steve Strauss talked about earlier about the funds of recruiting physicians in this environment. You're not going to recruit a physician in 3 months. So be a good partner. Figure out that timing. And that timing, if you're like an imminent, hey, I'm going to retire in the next year, that's a conversation you're having before you enter your partnership. Because if you tell them up front, guess what? Your partner's not going to freak out. If 3 weeks after closing, you're going to, this is great. I'm glad we did this transaction. I know we said we were going to do this. I'm going to retire. That creates a problem. That sets the partnership right off the bat at a bad tone. And yes, believe it or not, the private equity guys do consider death and disability good lever. So why is it important? Because it affects the value of your rollover equity. So one of the mechanisms that's used in today's marketplace is impacting the value of that equity that you rolled over into the transaction. Because you're like, well, I'm done working, I don't expect to get paid, but I expect to get the value of that equity I rolled over. Remember, 25 to 30% of the transaction values getting rolled over continue to be held in your pocket in the new company so they can grow. Well, if you're a good leaver, you have the ability to maintain that value. You're going to get bought out at fair market value, or you're going to get to ride along. Just because you retire and said, I'm done, doesn't mean the private equity is going to cash you out of your equity. As a general rule, they don't like doing that. They'll do it, but as a general rule, they don't like. So as it continues to grow and increase in value, you're going to get to participate in that. So again, a lot of impact to you post that you have to spend time understanding before you ever consider going down finding a partner. So if we have good levers, then we have bad levers, right? So a bad lever is if you're going to do something that's going to generate significant revenue loss. So, abrupt or unexpected departure that's in your control, right? I don't want to work anymore for this practice. I want to pack up and move to Florida, which all of us will be doing in about 3 months, right? As soon as the cold sets in. Really bad, joining or starting a new practice. I thought this private equity was being great. I thought we were all going in the same direction with the partnership. I don't like the way the partnership is going anymore. I'm going to go start up a new practice with Dr. Jones down the block. That is not being a good partner. Losing your license, getting convicted of a crime, those are all bad things that prevents you from practicing medicine. The ramification is the value of your rollover is going to get impacted. Some cases, they're going to take it back from you. In other cases, if you're lucky, they're going to buy it back from you at cost. So it has real economic impact to you as you look at, hey, what kind of partner am I going to really be? And what kind of partner are they going to be? Well, I can get used to this. Well, can you get used to it 5 years from now and 10 years from now? Because they're looking for you to stick around and play ball for 5 years as a general rule. So you've got to really think through, is it the right kind of partner? Is it the right cultural fit? Is our ethos of our organization going to be preserved with this new partner? Because there's economic ramifications, because they're going to pay you a lot of money. And they're going to pay it to you up front, and they're counting on you to do your part kind of going forward. This is the way they're going to enforce it. This is why you have the good lawyers to help you and good advisors to help you figure it out. All right, now everybody's favorite topic, or at least every physician's favorite topic, is this mysterious second bite of the apple. So physicians, the private equity partners, the holy grail that people perceive is, oh my gosh, I take that 30% rollover equity and I'm going to get a second bite, the quote-unquote second bite of the apple. You got to do your homework, right? You got to figure out, is this really going to be a good partner? Are they successful? Have they been successful growing other physician practices? I come from a family of doctors. I've worked with physicians for a number of years. Y'all are a different breed. It's a very different role to manage and work with physicians. So if your partner doesn't have experience working with physicians, do you really want them learning on your dime? So find a group and there's tons of them. There's more private equity interested in healthcare, the healthcare sector, than ever before. So find a partner that's been successful and that's done that. Get their track record. Have them show you, yes, we invested $1 and we got back $3, $6, 50 cents, whatever it is they got back. So these guys have done it not once, but they've done it repeatedly. So they get the game, because that's why you're finding this partner. Most practices are looking for a partner because they want to grow, and they're great clinicians, but they're not sure how to grow, how to get to that next level. All private equity has done is spent their whole lives building and growing and developing companies. They haven't done it, 1 or 2 times. They've done it 10, 20, 30, 40 times, depending on the firm that you're partner with. So engage advisors to help you. Get your lawyers, your investment bankers to help you figure out and vet out and ask the hard questions about those groups so you can figure it out. I have not walked out of a management presentation. The first time my physicians get to meet the private equity group and they don't go, oh, I really like those guys. And you have 4 of those meetings in a row. I really like them. Of course you like them. They're nice people. They're selling as well. Right? They're trying to get you excited in them as you're trying to get them excited in you. So you have to peel the layers back to figure out really what kind of partner they really are going to be. So we talked about the physicians. I want to talk about my private equity partner friends as well, right? They've got to remember, they got to prove it to the physician partners and the physician shareholders that they really can generate that second bite at the apple, right? Some don't want to share believe it or not, they don't want to share their experience and success. I've done this for a long time. I haven't figured out why that would be possible. If you've been successful, you'd kind of want to share it and brag a little bit about it. Often working with family offices who've stepped into this segment a lot, they talk about, oh, we're long-term capital holders, we're not looking for that next exit. The problem is the physicians need that second bite of the apple to take care of the income that they gave up in order to generate the transaction. So private equity get it, they have other people's money, they have to return it, so they're going to create a second exit. Family offices are often playing the same playbook they've played in operating companies. We're like, well, we don't necessarily have to exit. That makes a huge difference in the physician market, and one of the areas they have to work through. Physicians don't fully understand how the second bite of the apple works, and that's particularly acute with younger physicians. Younger physicians sit back and say, oh my gosh, I'm giving up 20 years worth of cash flow. Why would I ever do this? Right? The older docs are like, well, this is great. I can exit. I get a big payday. I would have gotten, my receivables. And the younger docs are like, I'm suspicious. When you actually walk through the economics and how this plays out for the younger docs, in the long run, it is far more lucrative for the younger docs than it is for the more experienced physicians, because they have the ability to do this role multiple times. Not once, not hey, I'm in, I found my private equity partner and they sold again. They actually have the ability to do it, because what happens is private equity comes into your space, they build your organization up, they sell it to the next larger private equity group. That private equity group does the exact same thing, grows it up, takes it public, or sells it to even a larger private equity group. If you don't believe it, go look at the story behind Envision and Team Health. They all started with single emergency room physician practices, went through a series of private equity, went public, and then the two largest private equity companies in the world, Blackstone and KKR, each separately took them private again. And physician shareholders got to ride that stream all the way up. So it creates a real opportunity, but you got to educate, my private equity friends have got to educate the physicians on how this is really going to work and what the plans are to achieve it, because it matters to the physicians. So hopefully I gave you a little bit to think about life after private equity, after you've entered that partnership. And I purposely use the word partnership. It's a two-way partnership, and gave you a few items to think about as you're looking at maybe entering this kind of partnership. With that, I can pause and answer any questions. We only covered a couple areas, but want to make sure we got questions or insights that we can add to that discussion. It couldn't have been that brilliant. Any questions? Okay. I think we're ready for the next one then. All right. Thank you very much.